Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers. I'm here at our mostly empty studios. I always give you a shot there. Garrett's right there at home for us. Hopefully you can hear me okay. You know what? I switched these around. I'm going to switch them up, Garrett, as soon as we start to the summary page. But this is Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers, where we dive deep into the data. We can help you find any information you're looking for to make the best choices for yourself and your family. You know your family's history and health better. We're just happy to walk you through where to find these numbers online to make the best decision. So, Garrett, let's start where we always do on that summary page, and I'll switch my headphones around so it's easy to hear me.
Let me load it up here. This is, of course, the AZDHS summary page where all of the county and data is put into the state. So I have it up and ready to go. Here we have, let's just go over the full numbers again. 182,000 confirmed cases since the very beginning. 32 deaths. Very likely that next couple days across the 4,000 threshold. Number of new cases today, 1,698. That is off of 1,388 tests. That is actually quite an impressive low percent positive that we haven't seen for quite some time. 87 deaths have been reported today. So just to look at some of these, the positive for the PCR test has gone down one more time to 14.3, and the serology, which is the antibody positives have gone up to 5.4. When you sort of, that's a great thing to have both the antibody to go up and the PCR to go down, because that's what we want to see. We want to see this data to be more reflective of antibodies than of the PCR diagnostic tests.
Why do you like that, Garrett? Why do you like that part?
The simply put, serology cases are added onto the data, but serology cases are basically they're people who have already had COVID-19 and already have the antibodies. So when we see that, this is just obviously people that are added to the case data, but they're already through their COVID-19 infection. So we want to see that serology positive number go up and that percent positive number go down. And I'll get you the daily percent positives here in just 1 second. I had to pull it up. The daily percent positives right now are 13%, which is one of the lowest numbers we've in quite some time. The total percent positive was 11.7%, and the estimated PCR positive, that's where we try to pull out the serology, the PCR test from that case number, that is at 6.9% today. So, and that's the lowest we've had since June. So that's a great number to have, at least showing up. That is an estimate. That's something we calculate. So I can't I have to say, but we do have indication that the estimate is correct, as we've seen the last couple of weeks. We've had about, last couple of days, we've had 8% showing up as our daily percent positive on the epi curve. And I'll show you that a little later.
Okay, and I'm getting some questions about the Navajo Nation, and I just want to note that we will get to that today. I saw that question come up just a second ago, and I know we haven't touched on that in a couple of days, and it's worth updating everybody on that. Was there anything else, Garrett, that caught your eye on this page today in particular?
No, we didn't have any sort of thresholds today. We didn't break any milestones today. We had a higher than what I didn't assume we were going to have a 13% PCR test reported today, a little higher than I thought we would have. So, but again, this could be, I've had some people tell me that ASU is testing their students before they can go back to school. So we might be, that's one of the indications. What we might be having is we might be having college students being added to these PCRs as we get closer to school being started. So we're just getting we're getting sort of a wave of diagnostic tests right now.
Yeah, we were hearing that from some parents, some of you parents of college-age students who were joining us on here yesterday. So we appreciate that insight as well. And we'll continue to track those numbers for you and look at those age groups, although we are split in that group by the ages, because normally college kids are like 18 to 22 years old for the most part, and we have that split in the division of ages at 20. So it kind of gives us a tougher time to analyze just specifically for college age kids, but we'll help walk you through what that looks like. And Eaton says ASU made a statement that they aren't sharing their data. That's one of the things we reported on last night at 10, that was the decision at this point out of ASU. So we'll keep you updated on any changes on that. Obviously, it's of interest to all of you on here, so we'll stay on that. But overall, the death numbers, we were kind of worried about that. We talked about that yesterday, Garrett, that the number of deaths reported might be higher for the rest of the week because we had a Tuesday that was so low, and usually Tuesdays are higher.
Yeah, we've been triple digit Tuesdays for a
Yeah.
couple weeks now, several weeks now, but we are starting to get to the point that we are expecting these death numbers to start going down. It's just that Tuesday's number was a pretty stark decrease, sort of not the absolute decrease we were expecting. We were expecting it to go down a little slower than it did on Tuesday. So that just indicates that like today was higher than Tuesday. Tuesday, I believe, was 66. Today's 87. Tomorrow might be in this range, so that we at least compile sort of what we're expecting for the week. And you know, we'll see what happens. But we are expecting this number to decrease in the next coming weeks. So we should be under that. We're getting to the point where we might get under 100. We might start seeing, you know, to that gateway point where we may start seeing less than 100 deaths a week. And
Yeah, we could be on the.
We might get there soon.
Yeah, it could be on the backside of that curve. What I can tell you is the county health department just spoke, and they are using their temporary morgues. They had moved some in, and when they hit 86% capacity, that the temporary morgues went into use, and that's where the bodies are held as they are waiting for the funeral homes to then move in and pick them up. They said that they have seen a sharp increase in deaths over the last year, and that is not unlike what Garrett and I have reported to you over the past few months that we've been meeting on here each afternoon. All right, Garrett, let's get to a little bit better news as we look at these hospitalization numbers, COVID-specific metrics for that. Things are starting to trend down. I know that not every hospital is seeing this or feeling this just yet, but it is a hopeful sign that things are making their way in the right direction.
Yes, we are having some technical difficulties with the hospital. There they are. Hold on.
Slowly loading today.
The dashboard was not loading, but it seems to now. Good news today. We did break a milestone that we haven't seen for quite some time. If it's difficult to read, we are now under the 2,000 beds for COVID-19 specific patients. We crossed that today. So under 2,000 beds. That's the first time we've seen that since June 21st. So we've been trending down pretty dramatically in this department, and it appears that though we may slow down, the trajectory of descent may slow down here soon. We're still going down, and we haven't seen anything to indicate otherwise right now. Ventilators, we're still having crashes here. I will go back to, let's see if we can try this again. I don't know what's going on at the AZDHS. We may have to go back over this a little bit later, but they're crashing right now. So,
yeah, we can jump back on that in a minute and get to some of the questions that are coming in. Let's see. Darlene says temporary morgues are not needed due to all the COVID deaths. No need to sensationalize. Darlene, that was straight from the county. They just had a presentation moments ago. That's where that update came from. No sensationalizing anything here. That is directly what they said just moments ago in the update. If you wanted more information on that, it just wrapped up, and you can watch it in one of the last videos here on ABC 15. Numbers seem to be too good to be true, Sarah writes. She says almost. Thoughts on that? We've been waiting for this. We can see when we're tracking the results that come back, and then we can see when the hospitalizations had increased, and then sadly the deaths increasing. So we're kind of watching. It's kind of following the natural curve that we expected here. As sad and devastating as it is throughout the whole thing, this is exactly what we could see happening early on in early June.
Yeah, we had we had some indicators that things were going to start improving. You know, we started seeing the hospitalizations going down, which is one of the first indicators that things would start looking good. We also, as we said, like if you look at the timeline of events, you know, the mask orders were put into place, but while people may disagree if a mask is useful or not, what it did was it kind of prepared people psychologically, and we saw that the indexing for the social mobility also decreased. So whether the masks are were the impact or whether the reason why the index, the social mobility went down as well, the fact of the matter is it did go down. So people started choosing to stay at home at the same time the mask order went into effect, and that is certainly going to have an impact on the numbers.
Absolutely. Let's see. Someone was just asking about Yavapai County. Are we able to pull that up for them?
Yes, I can pull up Yavapai County.
We can take
I
a
may
peek at
have to
that.
go to my
Let me
my
scroll back. It's
hospitalization.
Sheila, I believe.
I do
She's
have the
saying,
hospital. Oh, go ahead, please.
oh, I was just going to read her comment to folks at home if it's too tiny on your cell phone. Can you take a quick look at Yavapai County? Looks like positivity is steadily going up in that area. Let's take a peek and see how things look specifically.
Let's see. Yes, I'm gonna pull it up right now.
I should mention also, Garrett, as you're, oh, you got it right there. Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. So this is the Yavapai page here. This is during the county, 926 with 66 deaths. The recoveries are 66. And you are right. The negative test number has actually gone down a little bit, which means the positivity has gone up a little bit. It's at 93.7. It was somewhere in the 94 yesterday. So while it hasn't been a massive increase, it has. We are seeing a slight increase of positivity in that area. So otherwise, Yavapai has been fairly stable. They've had about 25 hospitalizations for quite some time now. And you can see Yavapai County is one of the only counties that, in fact, it is the only county that gives us a breakdown of ages that is better, more comprehensive than under 20. You see, they have a 0 to 12, and they also have a 13 to 17 to basically, break out that minor category.
Yeah, it gives a lot more detailed information than some of the other areas. Although I can tell you that the county, in their briefing just a few moments ago, I want to let everybody know that they have let us know that they are going to be setting up a data dashboard just to track schools. So this will track zip code, school district, and city, so that we'll be able to have really good information specific to school districts. And that makes two people right here who love data very excited. And Garrett, these are great men and women working on this site behind the scenes over there at the county to give us this information.
Maricopa County has one of the best GIS departments in the country. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, GIS is essentially the mapping. It's mapping data, putting it online so that you can see it all. And Maricopa has just such a great GIS department. So when they say that they're going to start putting this stuff into a dashboard, I'm sort of assured, at least because I've worked with them for so long, that this is going to be, when they put this map together, it's going to be a pretty fantastic map. It's going to have a little bit more information than we're used to seeing. So.
Yeah, it sounds highly interactive, and it's going to be great for schools. They also talked about some of the metrics that we're looking for to be able to get kids safely and teachers safely back to school. And they were talking about that being a less than 5% positivity rate. So, and talking about something, Garrett, you and I have talked about for a long time on here, that how long does that then need to be sustained before it's safe for these kids to come back? And they absolutely echoed what we said here, 2 weeks. We got to have that data that represents that for at least that amount of time.
Yes, and that's exactly right, because as we said yesterday, when the reported data, that sort of is going through for a 2-week period. So whenever something happens, we say, oh, this is the report that we're getting from the counties or from the state department and the state health department. And that data is not what happened that day. So when we put up that summary page and we say 87 deaths, this was not 87 deaths that occurred in a 24-hour period. This is 87 deaths that probably occurred over anywhere from 2 to 4 week period. And so that's why when they're saying we need to establish these trends, that's why they say we need to wait 2 weeks, because it takes 2 weeks to establish a trend in anything we've been doing with COVID since the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Reva's asking about the inmates in Tucson. That would the numbers include the inmates in Tucson? Now, Garrett, we just reported last night at 10 that we had, I believe, about 500 inmates in Tucson testing positive. Would that then be relayed to those county numbers?
Yes, it will be put into the county numbers, although I do not know the speed in which those numbers will be input. So while they may have positive tests, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have been fully inputted into the MedSys database, the tracking database, quite yet.
Right.
So I'm not 100% sure when it's going to be reflected, or if it already is reflected in our numbers. I doubt that it's fully reflected, just simply because I would have expected at least a pretty significant case spike, which we didn't see. So, we'll see over the next couple of days if these numbers are rolled in. We should see increases in was it Pima County? Yeah, in Tucson. So we should see increases in Pima County, and that should reflect that. But we're just going to have to wait a little bit.
So, Reva, really good question. Thank you for asking that. We'll continue to keep you updated on that. Let's see. Lanisha writes, the numbers keep going up, yet they haven't shut anything down. So what we have closed so far is the bars, the gyms, water parks. In fact, one water park just announced, you know what, we're done for 2020. We're not going to reopen at all. So those places are still closed at this point. I know there's been challenges to that decision in the courts. We reported on that yesterday, that there was some movement and some decisions on that, but they still need sort of a framework from the governor's office to see when they can meet the criteria to reopen, and we haven't heard that just yet. Garrett, you were mentioning yesterday that the governor is headed or has arrived at the White House. So he's out there meeting with President Trump this week. So we don't expect to hear from him at all, at least visually on that front. If he releases something out of his office to update everybody, that might happen, but we don't expect to hear from him on air necessarily.
Yes.
Let's see some of the other things coming in. Let's see. I just saw a question go by. I want to jump back to. Let's go to the Navajo Nation. I know that was just a minute ago that we got that question, but we ran out of time yesterday, ran up against the end of our conversation there, and I want to update folks on how that situation looks for the Navajo Nation.
So
and they've been so aggressive on shutting down on the weekends and really making sure that they're protecting everybody there by having everybody stay home for at least 57 hours over a weekend.
So I'll give you the rundown of the numbers in the last week or so, and then we can provide the sort of updates on what's going on there with everything surrounding it. So the Navajo Nation has not had a case growth over 1% for 19 days now, and they haven't had, and they haven't provided any daily case numbers over 100 for about the same period. So we're looking at a very flat curve in Navajo County. In fact, yesterday they only added 17 cases to the count. That's less than 2%, less than a 0.2% that were added to their cases yesterday. The recovery numbers are pretty high as far as they define recoveries. We have 6747 recoveries in Navajo, and that's against 9156 cases. So the majority of cases are already in recovery. So they are definitely a flattened curve at this point.
Yeah, that's great news for an area that was so incredibly hard hit through all of this. We're getting some questions about testing. Let me put this out there. If you want to get a test, go to doineedacovid19test.com. I'll say that again so producer Josh can punch it up there for you. doineedacovid19test.com. And that is the spot to go get started and find out any information about where you can get a test here in Arizona and the different types of tests. Remember, there's the nasal swab test, but then there's also the saliva test through ASU, which is so simple. They do that on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and you can sign up for those. You get an answer pretty quick. And now even Sonora Quest, Garrett, as we saw yesterday, is saying that they're going to be turning around their tests in as little as 3 days. That backlog is cleared now, correct?
It's cleared. There is no more backlog.
It's really great news because we heard from so many of you on here who were waiting so long to get any information on how your tests were turning out. So thankfully, that's some good news. But doineedacovid19test.com is the best place to start, at least for a test. If you're looking for an antibody test, you can get free antibody results by giving blood. And you can do that both at Vitalant and at Red Cross. They'll let you know the information on antibodies in your system after you've donated there. So that's a free way to get that information as well.
I can go over hospital numbers if you'd like, Katie.
Sure.
Had to look my own numbers, but we do have them. So this is sort of my internal charts that we're going to have to use because the ACDHS numbers are not working. So you can see emergency room visits. You can see a slight decrease from yesterday on emergency room visits. On ICU occupancy, also a decrease. The ventilators also a decrease, so both in those two categories. And then the inpatient, this is what I was talking about the first time, under 2,000. As you can see right there, just under 2,000 for the inpatient. Inpatient being the general acute care, anything in a bed or anything in a hospital that isn't a maternity or an ICU bed. And here's the actual numbers. So 618 for the ICUs, 1171 emergency visits, general beds 1945, and ventilators 455.
Yeah. One comment that's coming in, Alice writes, some can't give blood. Alice, you're absolutely right. Some cannot give blood. That was just information on a free antibody test. So those are just, if you're looking for a free antibody test, that's the way to go. If you can't give blood, you'll have to go another route to get an antibody test and likely in that case pay for it. I just wanted to provide folks with some free ways to be able to get that information. Were there other numbers there in the hospitalization data that you were pulling, Garrett, that you wanted to share?
No, the only thing we need to say about the hospitals is that they're still, as far as the actual general occupancy of the census numbers, they're still pretty much holding strong, going down slightly. We're now in the low 80s. Sorry, this is the R-naught page, not the hospitalization page.
Yeah, no, but let's go to that. Let's go to that. We're still in second spot for that.
Just as a note that all the hospital occupancy is still pretty much in the low 80s. They are. It seems that the hospitals are getting. They are basically keeping their hospitals at least with some occupancy so that they can get through those elective surgeries that they had to suspend in middle of July to take care of the COVID-19 surge. So that's sort of the report on that. Now the R-naught number, we did go down again today. We are at 0.87. And as you can see, we are, if we look at the error bars here, I'm going to darken my screen so it's a little easier for everyone to see which ones are green and which ones are red. And you can see our R-naught range, 0.69 to 1.05. We are only a 500th of a point off from being under 1 in the entire error bar range. So that is, especially since we're looking at with no testing backlog, this is pretty good news right now. I mean, I'm pretty excited to see that we're almost in an R-naught range that is fully under 1, even in the error bars.
Well, it's pretty incredible that when
error bars by Bradley, error bars, ERROR.
When we want to take control of a situation, we certainly do here in Arizona. That's for certain. I mean, we made changes and quickly saw things change here. So that's the good news. It's how long can people stay the course with the changes that we've made, and how long do we need to stay the course to keep things within a reasonable territory? We obviously have a ton of states there, not even half the country in the green so far. So we have all those people in the red that are concerned if they're traveling here to Arizona.
Yes, and you do have obviously more this week than we had last week. We're looking at, we're not at, as you said, 50% yet, but we're getting close to it. Most of the states, it seems that the median is in the 1 sort of. If you look at just how these are all springing out, the median seems to be at 1 to 1.01. So barely any transmission as far as past the 1 mark as far as the median for the country. But you can see we're joined now by a bunch of other states. A lot of East Coast states. Florida's in here now under 1. So again, we'll see how this works out. I mean, as we've talked about before, the R-naught can turn on a dime on the reported numbers if for some reason we start getting a higher % positive and we start seeing more cases. So, and we, like we said before, the testing demand is just quite not there at this moment. So if testing demand starts to go up, and that is because there is more transmission in the community, that will increase the case numbers we're seeing, which will then impact the R-naught number. So, we're sort of always chasing this. It's one of the biggest problems is that, we talked about this 2 weeks, we're always chasing this.
Yeah. Garrett, what number are you personally watching closest right now? What number is kind of highly of interest to you? So let me just put it this way. At the beginning of the summer, when we were tracking this, it was, my gosh, look at cases and look at the number of deaths. And now that we were kind of getting past that initial curve of cases, high cases being reported, and then we saw high hospitalizations, and now we're starting to see the downward trend of that. We do still have a higher number of deaths, although we've seen it lower the past 2 days. Are you watching % positive closely? Are you what is the number that you are tracking closely?
So I'm watching sort of 3 metrics closer than others. One is the percent positive, and not the reported percent positive, but the percent positive on the epi curve. And that basically is the more accurate. I would show it to you if the AZDHS site was working, but that is basically the weekly aggregated percent positive of tests coming in, because that's the best indication of what's happening, regardless of any sort of spread over a period of 5 to 7 days. This is happening. This is what's happening that day. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that percent positive. Right now, we've had about 4 days of less than 10%. I think we're at 8%. So that's great. The next number that I'm looking at is the active case numbers. That's how many cases we have that would be considered infectious, just based on the CDC's definition of how long the infectious period of this disease is. Right now, the range we have is about 17,000 to 55,000 infectious in Arizona. So I'm looking at that as well very strongly. So those are sort of two metrics I'm looking at. And then, of course, emergency room visits. I have to always talk about emergency room visits, because it's one of our best leading indicators on what's going on out there. So if that starts to pick up and we haven't seen testing increase at the same rate, it will likely, if there's a pattern pickup of emergency room visits, then we may start to see a similar increase in cases and tests in about 4 to 5 days.
Yeah, because you're saying that they in all likelihood, they're going to the ER, and then later their tests are coming back. So then we're seeing those results show up in the numbers.
Yeah, because the hospitals are giving us they're giving us both, especially in that ER number. There's a lot of possible COVID-19 in that number specifically. So because of that, if someone comes in with the symptoms, they haven't gotten tested yet, but there's a high possibility, especially if they're checking boxes and getting all the symptoms, that the doctor's going to mark it as a COVID-19 patient. So because of that, that number might be the best leading indicator we have. It's like, wow, what's going on here? And if it goes up, it goes back down. It's a very fluctuating number. But if we start seeing a sustained increase over a week or two, then, that's something that we have to worry about, because that's going to start being reflected in the testing numbers.
So Alex Corey is asking, is testing down? So obviously we haven't seen the long lines out there, Garrett, but as we saw all these tests come in, I think we had 14,000 test results come in today. Then is testing necessarily down, or are there just a lack of lines now that there are more places to get tested? Because if we're always having around 15,000 turned in, the results coming out, then is testing down, or can we say that even at this point?
We can say that testing is down. I'm sharing the epigraph that is associated with testing. Dark blue was there yesterday. The light blue was input today by the AZDHS. And you can see that we have several weeks now. This is our peak right here, this late June, early July week. And then we start seeing a step down. In fact, a significant step down right here from about 15,000 on any given day to about 10,000, a little less than 10,000 on this week. And here's this week we're at right now. We're averaging for this last week under 10,000 tests. So and this is a demand. We do not have a backlog anymore. So these are being input as they're needed. So yes, testing is absolutely down at this point.
All right. Good question there, Alex. Thank you. Andy's asking about new deaths. Andy, we had 87 reported in Arizona in the last 24 hours here, 51 of those in Maricopa County. So our total numbers of lives lost. And as I tell you this, Andy, we remember each and every family member and friend and colleague and coworker who are behind these numbers. We're approaching 4,000. We've lost 3,932 Arizonans to COVID-19. So we're still obviously in the middle of this. And Garrett, one of the sites that you were looking at was saying that we would in total lose about 7,000 Arizonans by the fall.
Yes, that is a projection site. So let me get to that. That is the projection site that I mostly use, which is COVID-19-projections.com. This is a machine learning model that does this. So it's less, it's more impartial to the data than, say, being able to sort of change the parameters around. And this one does have the total deaths to the fall, November 1st. The range is 87.76 on the high end to 52.89 on the low end, with the projected number being 68.28 at this point. So just under 7,000.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a long way to go and a lot of lives lost here if that ends up being the case. Let's see. I want to get to some of the other questions, and we only have like a matter of minutes left. I have to jump on another call here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to get to some of these questions. Danielle is asking Garrett, do we have any predictions or data for a second surge? We're still considered in the first round here in Arizona.
I believe that that's what they're saying, and this is why we're looking. This is what that R-naught number is for. This is why we were talking about, why we've pivoted. Like as you said, a couple weeks ago, we were all focused on the cases and the tests and the death numbers. Because things were going up. And it was like, when is this going to end? When are we going to start to plateau? Well, now that we're sort of on the down end of this sort of surge that would just happen, that's why we're starting to look at the leading indicators. This is why we're starting to look at the hospitalization, the emergency room visits, the R-naught number, things that will sort of indicate what's going on right now. So if we're looking at that percent positive epigraph, and we see, there's been, it's been 8%, 8%, 8%, but then all of a sudden, there's one that's 12%, and there's one that's 14%. That's what it's like. Whoa, why are those going up? Why are they why is there a pattern of those going up? And that's sort of early indicators that we can use to see if something is going to happen. We don't know if what's going to happen, of course, but it's just sort of what we can use to sort of gauge what's going on right now.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Ray writes, if this is the first round, I hate to see the second. Obviously, that's the concern in all of this. And how do we protect ourselves and our kids and our families? And that's why we talk about this each afternoon right here. Let's see. Were there any other numbers we wanted to get to today, Garrett? There were a few questions before about the figures for recovery. How many people do we believe or project at this point are recovered here in Arizona? AV Henderson writes, how many people have recovered? How many people have tested negative? Now, not all the places report their negative results.
Yeah, let me see. I was just looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can get that for you very soon. I had an error in my code, so I have to, there's probably a syntax issue, so I just have to fix that really quick, and I can get you that number. I just added it today to get the actual inactive cases number. I've been giving you active cases, and I wanted to add the inactive cases, and I had a slight syntax error. So let me re-render it.
Okay. As you're doing that, I want to answer Anastasia's question. Anastasia writes, I heard the gyms have to apply to open up. That is basically the idea in all this, that the governor's office will provide a framework by which they need to prove that they're safe for people to go and work out there. So although I believe Mountainside tweeted they're going to open on Tuesday, by following proper protocol, the governor's office would need to release a framework. They would need to apply and demonstrate how they're then meeting that framework and then be able to open up. So that's the way it's understood at this point. And when we get any information from the governor's office on that, we'll of course pass that along. How's it working, Garrett, at all?
It should be working. It's just small little, it's one of the things about coding, one little apostrophe out of place.
Yeah, changes the whole thing.
So, let me see. Okay, yes. So the low inactive, so this is cases that are aged over 27, or excuse me, cases that are aged over 14 days are 165,093 cases that are basically the cases that are over 14 days old. The high inactive is, ones that are over 27 or 28 days, that is 127,000 cases. That's with 182,000 cases in the system. So that's sort of, as you can see, that based on those inactivity numbers, that more than half of our cases at this point wouldn't be considered active cases, could transmit the virus at this point.
All right. I think that's where we'll sort of wrap things up. I'm sorry I have to get on another call here today, Garrett, but we appreciate your time. I know you had probably a late evening last night trying to run all the election numbers for us as well as all of our COVID numbers. So we appreciate the double duty on that. And let's see, any other coronavirus questions that we didn't get to, you can find all of our coronavirus in Arizona reporting on abc15.com/coronavirus. And to track the information Garrett and I are putting out, you can do that by following us on Twitter. I am at Katie Rammel. Garrett is at Garrett_Archer. You can find us both there. Garrett gives really good overviews in the morning between 8:30 and 9 a.m. And I usually retweet those. They're just a really brief and easy snapshot of how things look for that day here in Arizona. So if you want to stay up to date on that, if you're not on Twitter, we'll see you right here on Facebook. You can find me at facebook.com/news from Katie. And I'm appreciating seeing some of the names that I'm seeing here in the comments. Then join us over there for our conversation as well. So thank you for taking time with us this afternoon. And we'll have even more for you on ABC 15 News at 4, 5, 6, and 10 p.m. Be safe out there, everybody.